y'all. So we are in the midst of season 3 of the Girl Uprising podcast. And in the month of March, I decided to highlight women that I knew that had businesses just so, they could tell their stories about how they came to be. And my next guest is one of my boos. She has her own business. I'm going to let her kind of explain what she does and we'll get going. So everyone say hey to Brittney. Brittney, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. As Akila had stated, I am Brittney Patterson. I am a local cake artist here in Hampton Roads in the 757. I don't know where everybody's watching from, but if you are in the area, you can come find me. But before I go into that, I did want to say congratulations on season 3 of your podcast. That's so exciting. Yeah, so I've been doing cake decorating for, I want to say, a good 5 years. I started during the pandemic, and I do apologize if I'm moving too fast. I know you have your own questions. You probably, okay, so I'll go ahead and continue. But I started doing cake decorating during the pandemic, during 2020. And, of course, it was a slow time for everybody. We were all at home. So I was like, why not? Why not learn another skill? So back in 2017, I learned how to do cupcakes. So that's where I originally started. And during the pandemic, that was when one of my friends was like, well, since we're all at home anyways, why don't you learn how to, do X, Y, and Z? Because she was always sending me stuff. She's like, for my birthday, I want you to make this for me. And I would always say, I don't do stuff like that. So when the pandemic actually hit, that's when I was like, okay, I can actually sit down and focus and learn how to do some of the things that I've been seeing on Instagram and, Facebook and Pinterest, things of that sort.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really thought that it was before 2020, like when we started making cupcakes and things. Because I remember going to a little pop-up. And then you had something at your old apartment where you had made cupcakes. So I feel like it was before the pandemic when you started making them.
Yeah, so I started making cupcakes in about 2017. That's when I started, dabbling in that. And it wasn't until 2020 when I started learning how to do the cake decorating. And I would say maybe about 2022 was when I kind of really took it serious and decided to, step out and do this full time.
Cool. So why cakes? How did that come about?
Okay, so I never really saw myself as a creative in that area, that aspect. But the reason why I started doing cupcakes was because after college, I did kind of experience a dark time in my life. And, I don't know, I kind of found an interest in cupcakes. I'll put it that way. And there was this one TV show on the Food Network channel. What was it called? Cupcake Wars. I do apologize. Cupcake Wars. So that was one of the shows that I really fell in love with during that period of my life where I was just trying to figure some things out. And I just really found an interest. I found myself binge watching it. And I told myself one day, I was like, yo, you can do this, right? And so I just started playing around with some things, doing some research and started giving samples out to family and friends and, people within the community. And it kind of just went from there. I was getting a lot of good feedback and, putting myself out there was very hard initially. I'm not going to say it was easy, but the hustle was real. I was out here handing out flyers, cold calling people, trying to put my name out there, giving out samples to local businesses. So I really had to put some hustle behind it. And once people started to see who I was and what I was able to provide, I don't know, my business has kind of took off and I don't know, my phone's been ringing off the hook ever since.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that, because I'm going to plug her, y'all. I'm going to put her, her Instagram handles, her website and everything in the description. But Brittney is a big deal. If you go to her page, you see she has such amazing cakes. They're so pretty and they're really, really good. for all the celebrations that I've had. Um, one of her cakes was definitely ordered. But I think when we look at people on social media, we see where they are now, and we don't necessarily see like the hustle, the things that you had to do to get to where where you are. Why do you feel like that's important for you to say that? Because you could have left that part out of what you just said. So,
Yeah.
why do you feel like it's important to tell um, up and coming entrepreneurs and just everybody that you had to hustle a little bit to get to where you are?
Yeah, I felt like that little part was important for me to include because I feel like we live in a society right now where everybody feels like Instagram is real life. You know,
Thanks.
the things you see on Facebook is real life. They don't
Mm-hmm.
see the hustle behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Steve Harvey one day. He was talking about how, on Instagram, you can do stories and everything like that. He was
Mm-hmm.
like, a story is just a highlight of your life. This isn't real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to think that just because you see something on my story or something that I post in a reel, that this is something simple something simple that you can do. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everybody can tap into their creative side, but don't
Mm-hmm.
think that you're just going to blow up overnight because,
Mm.
the followers, that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
The consistent phone calls and emails, inquiries, people asking
Mm-hmm.
for orders, that doesn't happen overnight. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer that if you want something hard enough and you have the hustle,
Mm-hmm.
you stay motivated, you
Mm-hmm.
can eventually get there. But you can't give up at the first sign of, oh dang, I only got one call this week, or oh dang, I only got one email, I only made $20, on this
Oof.
order.
Mm-hmm.
But just keep at it, keep going, because
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're going to start making that $1,000 in order. You're going to start
Mm-hmm.
bringing in 50 clients a month instead of the one client you got last month. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep at it. And
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm talking to, but if you are a
Preach.
believer and if you are a woman of faith,
Okay.
you need to tap in and talk to God about it. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't connected, if I didn't stay connected with my relationship with God, because I
Okay.
feel like having a strong prayer life will also get you to
Mm.
that position where you desire to be in life. And
Ooh.
without being able to tap in with Him, your dreams are not going to go very far. I'll just put it that way.
Listen, you better preach, Britt. You better preach. That's true though. I mean, I think just social media and like when you see people doing well, you don't see the struggle. You don't see the journey. So we didn't see you praying like, Lord, please give me another client, or please let somebody find my social media, or why did I make this on this order and not this? We don't see that, and I think it's good to know that exists. It's just like, just because you want to have your own business, that doesn't mean that it's going to immediately,
Hmm.
turn out into like this big, just fruitful business. So, thank you for sharing that, and letting us know what the real is. Another question though. I have another
Hmm.
question. So you worked in corporate America at some point in time. Why or how did you decide that I need to pursue my business full time and tell corporate America bye bye?
Yes. So the position that I had, I was working with college students. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, I loved the position,
Mm-hmm.
but at that moment in my life, I loved my passion with cake decorating more. And
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point where I was having to choose, like of course I'm gonna go to my 9 to 5 job, but also I need to have another 8 hours to complete this very large order. So that's 16 hours right there in a day. And it's like I'm tired of working those type of hours. So something's gotta
Mm-hmm.
give. So it got to the point where I was like, all right, I gotta step out on faith. If this is what I've been working so hard for,
Mm-hmm.
why am I putting limitations on myself when God has
Mm-hmm.
already and presented me with the opportunity to move forward. And
Mm.
the signs were very evident and pretty clear that it was just time for me to go. So
Mm.
it wasn't something that was done overnight. I did have a backup plan in case things did not go the way I expected them to.
Mm.
But I guess it just came to a point where I was just too tired trying to juggle both.
Mm.
And I didn't want to represent the company in a bad way because I'm slacking, because I'm too tired
Mhm.
to do what I need to do in this position.
Mhm.
So I was pretty much like, okay, Brittney, give this job to a person who actually wants to be here. I was like, I don't
Okay.
want y'all to waste any more time with
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
it just got to that point.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I know other people who have small businesses and they also work a full-time position. And I think a lot of times it gets to that point. You get to a fork in the road and you're just like, all right, I am exhausted because I am working a full-time position and then I'm trying to fully work on my business and you have to make a decision. Taking that step of faith, taking that leap, I think is what separates the good from the great. Like, to me, because if you never bet it on yourself, or if you never say, Lord, I'm gonna just take this step, then you wouldn't have been where you were today because you wouldn't have had the time, to fully um, put into your business, right?
Right. And that was another thing. Time. There just wasn't enough time in the
Mm.
day to do what I needed to do. I felt
Mm.
like I know that God's timing is the best timing, but on the flip side, I did feel like I was a little behind with marketing and keeping
Mm.
up with certain cake trends because it's like I just don't have enough time to do all the things I see
Mm.
other people doing online to kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep up and keep the momentum going. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was just time to let something go, and that I'm sorry, that job had to go.
Bye, gotta go.
Yes.
I love that though. I remember the conversation that we had when you were thinking about like leaving your corporate job. And I remember thinking like, whew, that's very courageous because I know all of what is considered. It's 9 to 5 kind of equals like security. And
Mhm.
when you're doing your own things, like you don't know if a client is going to call you, you don't know exactly how much you're going to make. So it's definitely courageous, and I commend you for doing that because that's scary.
Thank you.
It is. It's scary when you are. Let's say you've been in your business or have had your business for, we'll say 5+ years. When did it get to a point where you thought, okay, I need to pivot? Like I've been doing X, Y, and Z for a certain amount of time, and this just isn't serving me, or I'm not getting as many sales as I want. I need to pivot. Like, do you have a time where that was like your thought process at all?
I would say maybe last summer I did feel like I kind of had to pivot in my
Mm-hmm.
business because I feel like my business flourishes based off of feedback from customers, and some of
Hmm.
the feedback I was getting was negative, and so I was like, okay, I need to tap in and figure out where I need to make some changes in my business so that
Hmm.
um, I don't have so that my business is not negatively impacted, and
Mm.
so it really did take some humbling, I guess, to sit down and take in
Mm.
all of the responses I was getting from customers and just kind of
Mm.
sit down and figure out what changes I need to make in order for my business to continue moving in the direction I
Mm.
wanted to move in.
Okay. Okay. That's a big thing too. Figuring out that maybe that what you done or what you did before isn't serving your business or you as well or your customers. So thinking of ways to pivot, I think is really, really important. That's where a lot of other people, and I'm just speaking from experience,
Hmm.
like you get stuck in doing something a certain way because it's comfortable, when in all actuality, that may be an indicator that it's time to kind of just move over to the left a little bit, pivot.
Hmm.
Um, to make your business like flourish, or, your personal life flourish. So I think it was
Yeah.
good for you to make that decision.
Thank you. Because I do feel like I was so used to doing certain concepts the
Uh-huh.
same way for so long. It just wasn't working
Mhm.
anymore. And it got to the
Mhm.
point where, customers were letting me know, like, hey, we love your work, but X, Y, and Z is not
Mhm.
what it used to be. So I
Mhm.
kind of had to, go back to the drawing board and figure out what I can do to brush up on my skills,
Mhm.
read not read podcasts, but watch podcasts, and just see what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Maybe watch some YouTube videos and
Mhm.
brush up on my technique. So it really
Mhm.
did take some humbling, because I was out here thinking like, yes, I know that my work is amazing, but I
Mhm.
got to a point where it's like, I don't need to, grow in
Mhm.
these areas anymore. I'm good where
Mhm.
I'm at. But no,
Mhm.
after some criticism for some work I did, I was like, okay, Brittney, you do need to maybe practice a little bit more, maybe slow down a little bit,
Mhm.
focus on what you're doing. Don't try to do too many projects at once, because it's going to negatively
Mhm.
impact your business. And it was just so many things I had to consider. And I'm happy that everything that happened last year happened, because I wouldn't be here
Mhm.
today. I would have allowed the criticism to, pretty much
Mhm.
destroy my brand of what I've built.
Mhm.
And I
Look
hope
at
everything
you.
I'm saying is making sense. I feel
For
like I'm
sure.
rambling, but
No, 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 no. It's, well, for me, and I'm sure for other people, it's definitely making sense. You could have, to be honest, you could have said, "I'm good. Like, I know
Mhm.
that I do great work. I don't know what you're talking about," and not taking that constructive criticism to extend your business, because now you do like cake classes, right?
Yes.
Okay, you did one recently. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So a person that I know from a job back probably about a decade ago, kind of showing my age right now, but back in college, she was one of my managers, and we kind of kept in touch on social media,
Mhm.
and she remembered that I do cake decorating. And so she reached out to me. She's like, hey, I work for this organization, and participants at the center, they wanted to know if you could possibly teach a cake decorating class. She's like, I've
Mhm.
already shown them your work, so if you say yes, they're ready to go. I was like,
Okay.
well, okay, fine, sign me up. So,
Mhm.
of course, I was being a little nervous about it, because
Yeah.
I'm not really big on public speaking, and then having
Mhm.
everybody just kind of looking at me as I'm teaching. I
Mhm.
was like, okay, what, I can do this. I told
Mhm.
myself I wanted to branch out and teach more
Mhm.
group classes, so this is a perfect
Mhm.
opportunity. And when I say they loved it, they had so much
Aw.
fun. We had a variety of different ages in there. I think the youngest
Mhm.
person we had was 7 years old, and I think the oldest
Aw.
person was, a grandmother. So it was just
Uh-huh.
a beautiful experience. I'm so happy that I took another leap of faith and did something that took me out of that comfort zone. But I
Mhm.
do hope that by this experience, I learned, I know I did learn many things about this experience, but I hope it allows me to go further and teach more
Mhm.
courses.
Aw.
Of course, that anxiety kind of set in initially, but
Yeah.
once we got rolling, once I started talking, it just flowed so
Mhm.
naturally. So I'm
Mhm.
very grateful for the opportunity.
Aw. Just the fact that you did it, right? That you agreed to host the class, like God had you clearly, and it's not like you hadn't been prepared. Like you make cakes, cupcakes. Like you're an artist and you do that on a daily, so you knew what you were doing. So I
Yeah.
think just the fact that you accepted the role of like facilitating the class, it's only going to get better. Now you kind of know how to tweak certain things, or maybe it's like you need to walk around the room or make sure that you're showing this or showing that. So now it's only like perfecting, like you got it.
Thank you. And that was one of my concerns. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so in my mind, I'm like, am I talking too much? Am I talking too slow?
Mhm.
Am I not making enough eye contact with
Mhm.
the participants? So of course,
Mm-hmm.
all of that was rolling through my head. But once I got the
Yeah.
feedback from the director at the center, she was like,
Uh-huh.
everybody loved it. They can't wait for you to come back. And before the class had started, I was talking to the director and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm a little nervous. I was like, what if I mess up? And she's like, Brittney, they don't know what they're doing. So if you mess up,
Exactly.
they're not going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess it's just me being who I am. I just feel like everything
Mm-hmm.
needs to be in order. But
Yeah,
I'm just very grateful for the opportunity.
for sure, for sure. You being a woman of color, a black woman, why do you feel like it's important for just women to start businesses or just people of color to start businesses? Um, why do you feel like that's important?
Yeah. So honestly, I feel like it is important for Black women to go out into the world of entrepreneurship
Uh-huh.
because I feel like society doesn't really expect us to win.
Mm.
And this is something that, you see it on the news.
Mm-hmm.
You see it around you every day on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it's important for us to have this space and come together
Mm-hmm.
and operate in entrepreneurship because we don't want the next generation to come in and not have any Black entrepreneurs. I'm sorry, female Black entrepreneurs to look up
Mm-hmm.
to. Because,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I didn't really have any entrepreneurs in my family. I
Mm-hmm.
literally had one, my great grandmother, she owned her own hair salon. But
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, I didn't know any entrepreneurs in my family. So the
Yeah.
fact that I'm able to do something that people in my family have not been able to do is very important to me. And, one day when I do have a daughter, I would love to, of course, encourage her to go to college if that's her
Mm-hmm.
choice, but
Mm-hmm.
also let her know that there are opportunities with entrepreneurship.
Right.
You can learn a trade. What
Mm-hmm.
I do with cake decorating, I didn't go to college for this. I went to Norfolk State. Behold,
Hello. Okay.
I went to Norfolk State for finance, and
Uh-huh.
of course, what I still kind of use the business stuff I learned in school to
Mm-hmm.
run my business, but I'm not really operating in the field of finance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's something out there for everybody. You just have to tap into it. And like I said, it is important for Black women to be out here because I feel like we're just not out there as we should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just important that the next generation is able to see that yes, they can do this
Mm-hmm.
too.
I know that's right.
Yeah. I just
I
don't
know
want them
that's
to feel
right.
like they're limited. I'll put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. And I think you taking a step just with like, oh, I'm gonna try this, cake business. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do these classes. It's like showing people that, or young women, black women, women of color in general, that you can do this. Like, you don't have to be limited. No, you may not have a degree or may not have gone to school in this field. Like, the possibilities are endless for real. Like, you just really
Mm-hmm.
have to, like you said, like tap into it, put your faith behind it too. So,
Yes. Yes, indeed.
do you have any tips or just any additional like success stories, anything that you want to share with the people that you feel may be beneficial to them?
Yeah. So I just want to reiterate that at the first sign of hardship coming in your
Mm,
direction, don't give
mm,
up
okay.
because you're not going to know what it looks like at the end of the tunnel if you
Mm.
continue to just stop because it gets too hard. And I feel like those roadblocks are put there for a
Yeah.
reason
Mhm.
because one day, like say if you do decide to do cake decorating,
Mhm.
sometimes you do need a difficult client so that you know how to handle a difficult client in the
Mhm.
future. If everything came to you so easy, you wouldn't know what to do when a
Mm.
difficult situation arises. So I feel like
Mm.
these roadblocks are put in our lives for a reason to make us stronger. So at the first sign of hardship, just don't give up. Try
Okay.
it out. It's okay to try it out. I do it
Mhm.
often if I feel like
Mhm.
I'm frustrated, but you gotta, put on your big girl pants and work
Okay.
through it because it's just gonna make you stronger in the end.
I agree. I agree. That's the word. That's the word for me. I
Yes.
don't know about anybody else, but that's true. That's true.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brittney. Please like plug your social media handles and your website. How can the people reach you?
Yes. So if you do have Facebook or Instagram, you can follow me at O Taste NC Cakes. I do apologize if it's a little long, but it's O Taste NC Cakes. And then if you do prefer to go to my website to place an order, you can go to
Mhm.
www.otastecupcakes.com.
Thank you so much, Brittney. We'll be in touch and thank you again.